Go, buddy.
Danger! Fireworks! Maximum level!
Here comes a new challenger! Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics!
Love, peace, and power, everybody. My name is Kilel Kiano, aka Konami Codes. Welcome to the Mystery Arcade Occult Multiversity. It has been a while. Love, peace, and power, Portia. Love, peace, and power, Mooney. Thank you for joining me. Everybody on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, I greatly appreciate you. Thank you for coming out on this Thursday night. It is my mother's heavenly birthday. Extremely poignant and special for me for a great many reasons, many of which I'm going to attempt to share with you tonight. Before I do that, I want to make sure that everybody knows that we are live. Oh, that's the wrong thing. There we go. Anybody sees this, you should know that somebody somewhere is listening to your live. I could not resist. I couldn't help myself. It has been a lot going on. I don't care what your vein of information, what you're into, what screen, what channel, what station, what frequency you're on. It's been a lot going on, man. I subtitled tonight's episode Rising Stars because we have lost or perhaps gained a great many legendary artists and actors and actresses lately. This year has been incredible. Frankie Beverly of Maze, James Earl Jones. The world is still reeling. It's been a very powerful year. Bill Cobbs, from Trading Places, from Taking a Pelham 123, The Bodyguard, and of course, New Jack City. Shelley Duvall from Popeye and The Shining, Fairy Tale Theater, for anybody who may remember that. Shannon Doherty from 90210 and Charmed. Interestingly enough, she was 53, and it's an 8 year. That 8 is finding a very, very interesting way to keep coming around, keep showing itself, keep manifesting. But that's what the 8 does, right? Bob Newhart, for any old head like me who remembers Newhart, my grandfather liked that show. For all my anime heads, Asuka Tanaka, right? If you don't know the name, I guarantee you know the voice. She was the voice of the main protagonist in Ghost in the Shell, the original anime. She did a lot of voice work on Naruto. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is another one. James Cassady. James Cassady, he was an artist. He did a lot of my favorite work on X-Men for Marvel, especially Astonishing X-Men. Just this last week has been incredible in terms of transitioning. But it's a very powerful time of year. Not just for myself and not just for certain cardinal points, but for everyone. Especially when you look at the nature of this dragon year, this universal 8. I said I was going to mention something about the debate. I don't get political. I'm gonna be honest with you, especially those of you who know me. I don't give a fuck about politics. I've never voted. I would never vote. But it's interesting to pay attention to just a little bit this year, if for no other reason than because there are going to be fireworks, right? Donald Trump is a dog in a dragon year, his enemy year. You can see that. Anybody who even watched a clip of that debate knows he got his ass handed to him. And I don't care if Kamala's earring was a microphone. I mean, as it should be. Donald Trump's whole ear is a microphone. That shit's fake as fuck. It doesn't really matter. But see, the interesting thing is Kamala's a dragon, and she's in her energy. She can't really do no wrong. I wish more people would talk about this because I know I'm not the only one who notices it. The real reason I wanted to watch the debate is because I wanted to see how often in quote unquote real time she actually restrains herself from laughing. She laughs all the time. And I've got some theories behind why that is. We can very easily go into psychology, but people are going to get triggered by that, and I'm not for that tonight. But it's very interesting to see something that's always fucking hilarious to that woman. You know what I'm saying? And it's very interesting to see. It's very interesting to see. There's something spiritual behind that, but that's going to be a conversation for another night. Tonight, for the most part, I want to tell a story. Again, today is my mother's birthday. It feels like it's my birthday. Shout out to Bonefeather, who pointed out earlier in the chat the numerology. Depending on where you are, you can also write it as 1224. 1224 is my birthday. Today, Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection came out. For anybody who is a gamer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, it is my honor to give you a history lesson and include myself in that to the best of my ability and tell you a little bit about my best friend, my mother, who passed. It'll be 24, there's that 24 again. It'll be 24 years next month. Um, and special shout out to Nicole, my cousin, who found some very, very important documents for me the other day. I was able to help me out with some things involving very special, specific numerology. You are priceless. I love you. Miss you dearly. Where to start? Let me take a look at the chat real quick. Love, peace, and power, Portia, Moon Feather, Magic LaCroix. Thank you for joining. And everybody on Instagram and Facebook, and everybody who will see at a later point. So, video games have always been a staple in my household. My mother was a fan of ColecoVision, for anybody who may remember that. My cousins used to bring their system over on occasion, and I would get to play it and blow my mind. But never did I ever imagine I would have a system to call my own. Not that we were poor by any means, we weren't rich either. But I learned, thanks to my grandfather who bought me my first gaming system, the Nintendo Entertainment System that came with Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. Right? I learned very quickly that video games had something I couldn't get away from, especially when they involved other passions like comic book characters or cartoon characters. As a matter of fact, before I completely immerse myself in the story, I want to show you how powerful a month September is. Shout out to Retro Toy Hunter. Anybody who's on my social media, either Instagram or Facebook or the Telegram, you've seen me sharing a lot of his videos, his content in the last couple weeks. He tends to showcase cartoons and television shows, certain movies, made for children when they came out. You'd be amazed how many things come out on a certain day. Thundercats, for example, debuted on September 11th, right? Thundercats was that work. You understand? It still is. It needs a reboot. Don't get me started. Love, peace, and power. Self D Chats. Thanks for joining us. Please check out his TikTok and his Instagram. He makes amazing jewelry. Send me a link, please, brother, so I can put that on my link tree. Incredible jewelry. Love, peace, and power to my birthday twin, Natasha. Thank you for joining us. Got a custom wood sword of omens. Damn, that's what I'm talking about. Yo, yeah. You need to take a picture of that, please, and post it. That's incredible. Thundercats was the joint for a lot of reasons, man. It combines a lot of mythology If anybody's familiar with the story of Superman, it's essentially the same story. Not to mention the fact that they call Earth Third Earth, and they're essentially fighting these humanoid reptilians. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna leave that one alone. Um, that debuted September 11th, yesterday. One of my mother's favorite actors, of course, mine as well, is and my grandfather's also was James Earl Jones for a number of reasons, a number of roles. So James Earl Jones passed on 9/9. Nine is endings. Nine is adaptability, right? For anybody who saw Coming to America 2, they actually did a funeral for James Earl Jones in the movie, which is very, very telling. And I think that movie came out in 2021. It did not at all live up to the original, but it had a lot of messages for those who were paying attention. Um, I want to play a clip. James Earl Jones overcame stuttering, right, to go on and do theater and then become an actor because of his prolific and legendary voice. Um, so this scene always stood out to me.
Quick.
What type are you interested in?
Well, it doesn't matter. Just one of those.
Fujitsu or the Fuji?
Oh. Which one do you recommend? The Fujitsu or the Fuji?
Fuck you.
Bravo.
You see what I'm saying? If you know the history of James Earl Jones, that scene makes it resonates that much more. You see. Okay, so where do we start? Started in video games, the beginning. My mother was a secretary for the Detroit Board of Education. And the last 15 years, she was alive. She was working in the school center building, downtown Detroit, also known as the Maccabees building. I would recommend you look it up for anybody who's a fan of Tartarian architecture. I love that building. I used to run around every floor. In the bottom of that building, there used to be an arcade called Roscoe's. Also, L. George's Coney Island. Anybody who knows anything about Detroit knows exactly what I'm talking about when I say Coney Island. This arcade would become a second home to me. I first came across it when my mother had a opening for an extra position, and she allowed me to be a courier for her during the summer. So this is I'm like 15, not quite old enough to begin the process of getting my license yet. Didn't have too much to do, and in order to keep me out of trouble, I would go to work with her. But it was cool because I could disappear to the arcade downstairs if I had something in my pocket, right? If I was doing right. No, well, yes and no, Moonfeather. Detroit has Coney Islands. If you Google Coney Island, Detroit, you will see about 1 million different restaurants with Coney Island in the name. Coney Island, American Coney Island downtown, El George's, Grandy's, on and on and on and on and on. A Coney Island is a 24-hour restaurant that has chili dogs, chili cheese fries, chicken Caesar pitas, cheeseburger deluxes, and wingdings, and all that other kind of good, wonderful fat nigga shit. We Detroiters like to call it. So multiple Coney Islands, not the singular one like in New York, home of the Warriors. 1994. There was a video rental store. I can't even think of the name what we used to call that shit. Y'all remember? Like, not just Blockbuster. Everybody remembers Blockbuster. You know what I'm saying? Y'all remember that one video store? Everybody, am I the only one who had the one video store they really liked other than Blockbuster that had that other shit? You know what I'm talking about? Whether it was games or whatever. There was one not far from our house when I started going to high school that had all the latest arcade games once this arcade had closed. 1994, there was an arcade game that came out called X-Men, Children of the Atom. This was during essentially the height of the original X-Men cartoon from the 90s, right? And, back in the day, it wasn't no internet like it is today. We weren't even texting or anything, none of this new world stuff that we have, quote unquote, today. So you didn't get an announcement that there was a new arcade game coming out. You would just walk up in the spot one day and boom, oh shit. There's a line out the door because everybody can play as Wolverine or Cyclops, right? Or Psylocke. Good God. So this phenomenon started of these arcade games with these Street Fighter mechanics. Street Fighter was already legendary amongst our culture. Whether you went to an arcade or you went to a restaurant or you went to the corner store, it very quickly replaced a lot of staples that always had games like Pac-Man or certain shoot 'em ups maybe. Street Fighter became that staple. Well, Marvel versus Capcom started its legacy there in '94. 6 months later, they came out with Marvel Superheroes, which was essentially the same thing, just with more characters. It gets to a point where a year after this, every year, it becomes a yearly kind of a summertime tournament thing where you finally get X-Men versus Street Fighter with the biggest roster, but it introduces the idea of this two-man tag. Capcom was the first to do that for anybody who doesn't know that fact already. This game stands out to me because by this point I had my license, and it kept me out of a lot of trouble, depending on who you ask. Shout out to Z. This is really. It kept me out of a lot of things. It gave me something to focus on that was sanctioned, okayed by my mother. My mother always encouraged video gaming because she knew she didn't have to worry about me. Detroit was a very, and still is, it's crazy. I saw something yesterday saying Detroit is one of the best cities to live in for this year, 2024. And I love my city. I always will. Best doesn't say anything about crime, and the crime has been crazy. So it's funny because like, who are you asking these things? You know what I'm saying? And that's now, let alone back in the day. Um, it's always something. It's always something. So after 96, we get to Marvel versus Capcom. Marvel versus Capcom was the first arcade game that I actually played, or should I say, my mother played with me. We would always go to the video store, and she'd get her picks. I'd get mine in like 2 seconds to go to the game and just wait. This was a routine for years. You understand what I'm saying? So when she actually got next to me and tried to push me out the way and put a quarter in, I almost lost my mind. Like, who are you? What have you done with my mother? So this game has points in my life, you understand, that make themselves known in such pronounced ways in hindsight. They were almost too powerful when they occurred for me to, of course, fully realize the implications they would have throughout the course of my life. We're talking about 24 years later. So I'm trying my best to walk you through this. Let me see. Moonfeather says, when Capcom came out with the arcade in my hood, we had to put quarters on the arcade for next. Yeah, most definitely. You know what I'm saying? You can't even do that anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you actually go to an arcade, if you go to a corner store, I guess it depends on where you are. It's questionable. But if you go to an actual arcade, you pay for arcade games with credit cards. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't even put a quarter, for next no more. You know what I mean? Like, certain things, for better or for not, old school was old school for a reason. There was a certain respect that came along with that too, especially being able to hold your own for a minute. So if D-Chat says you take Game Gear, I forgot about Game Gear. That's Sega Game Gear. Everybody had a Game Boy, but Game Gear, yeah, that joint was tough. Don't get me started because I'm going to jump ahead to the Switch. You ain't got time for that yet. Marvel versus Capcom has a way of animating and bringing out the best in certain characters. And it gave light to a lot of characters who had only ever shined in their own solo games. It also gave certain obscure characters some time to shine. So by the time we got to Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in 99, actually summertime 98, you had 56 characters, right, on both sides, on the Marvel and Capcom side, because people actually realized, like, they want to see all these, not just all these endings, but they want to learn all these moves. Like, if you understand mudras, hand signs, and you understand some of the movements of the joystick, you can understand why certain people like playing with certain characters. Like, it's actually a very deep science. It's one of the reasons why when they announced the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection this year, they did not announce it at EVO. If they had announced it at EVO, it might have been a riot, or they would have needed a lot of ambulances. You got to understand, this game, the last time I played it was probably 99 or 2000. It was on the Sega Dreamcast in 1999. As a matter of fact, I think the Dreamcast came out on 9/9/1999. And that was one of the first games to blow out the market. But it's been lost in limbo ever since. This collection was never supposed to happen. Not only did they announce it less than 2 months ago, but they've announced its successor. The second collection comes out sometime next year. They haven't announced the date for that quite as of yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. You create a vacuum when you monopolize something due to time constraints or due to system constraints. You can always go back, for those who may be collectors or those real hardcore gamers, and, perhaps like Self-D Chat says, burn the CD or download the CD, get an emulator. But it's just not quite the same, especially when something is such a moneymaker, or just so popular, draw so much attention. So when this was announced, it really broke the internet, and it's been crashing out ever since. I got it last night, and I haven't really allowed myself to play it too much, because you will get lost in it. These games are the template for so many others, especially in terms of fighting. And I like them all. Tekken, Soul Calibur. You have certain companies, Namco, Capcom, SNK. There's even a Capcom and SNK series collection that's coming out. You get to see where all of these different things come from in terms of the history, in terms of, why they're so popular. Interestingly enough, this physical copy that came, or the digital copy that came out today, has a physical copy that comes out November 22nd. So they're going to hit you in the head twice. Kikoken, yes, Chun-Li, most definitely. Tekken is my third son's name. Priceless indeed. Bushido Blade, yeah, that's another one. I wanted to point out Sun Sun, who's the granddaughter of Sun Wukong, who's a character in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, because this is a dragon year again, and the triune for the dragon is the rat, the dragon, and the monkey. So the rat and the monkey do very well. They do extremely well in each other's seasons, in each other's years. So Black Myth Wukong, mind you, it's called Black Myth, God damn it. Black Myth Wukong came out August 20th, and it sold more than 10 million copies in 3 days. I'm not sure how much it's sold now at this point, but it's made over $1 billion on Steam alone. It was at 150 million or 850 million. I'm sure it's well over $1 billion now. They've announced a sequel. They've announced DLC, downloadable content. But you got to understand who Sun Wukong is, the Monkey King. That template, I saw yesterday, that Bleach, not only is 1,000-Year Blood War returning, but you have a live-action movie now in development. This would be the year, this would be the season you will want to announce that, you will want to begin working on something like that. That Sun Wukong Monkey King energy template vibrates through so many different anime, so many different characters. Dragon Ball has a new series, Dragon Ball Daima, coming out next month in October, right? You can begin to understand why. You can see these patterns. On the flip side of that, you have a lot of transitioning. Someone pointed out to me yesterday how some Caucasians are also transitioning. Please forgive me. If anyone knows, please put it in the chat. The voice of Master Splinter, from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon, he passed. And you can understand, Bobby Hemmett spoke about how you will have a lot of other souls or spirits who will make the transition at the same time because that gateway is open. When we remember the kind of gateway that 9/11 actually is, that's going to make a lot more sense also, especially when you remember that 9/11 is the Ethiopian New Year, right? I think it's 2018 now in Ethiopia, right? So, where you stand in your time perspective means a lot. That's going to play out ridiculously in these next couple of months, especially in terms of this election. Moonfeather said Peter Renaday. Are you talking about the artist I was talking about, John Cassady? Tech B-Day 819 game was what he got to. Yeah, as he should. Anybody, listen, do what you do. I don't care. I really don't, you know what I'm saying? But don't waste your money on that PlayStation Pro. Do not do it. It is not at all worth it. That's just my opinion. Oh, you're talking about the voice of Splinter. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm not positive, but thank you for that, Mo Fella. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think that is it. Yeah, Splinter's voice. That's right. There was something else I wanted to show you guys. I want to give a shout out to my brother Hero Keith Young, who's going to be joining me next week. I have a crazy presentation about entertainment, and I don't want to speculate too hard. I want to enjoy it live with you guys. But when Keith goes in on something, he goes in on something. So it's going to be that's going to be something you're not going to want to miss. That's going to be the same time next week, Thursday night at 8, the 19th. You definitely want to be here for that. Slim with the disk drive to swap it to maybe. Well, see, the PlayStation, what is it, the Slim joint, the one that doesn't have the disk drive, I think that they may be dropping the price down to like $350, so it could compete with the Switch, the OLED, because the next Switch, which should be out, I guess, sometime in the first quarter of next year, is going to be between $350 and $450. Nintendo can charge whatever they want. One reason why Nintendo, I'm tempted to say, will always be on top, or at least will always have such a stable place in the game, pun intended, is because they can essentially ride the wave of everybody else and just move accordingly. So PlayStation boasts being, having the most powerful software, the most powerful system. But you're exploiting people right now. Everything is more expensive. And I do mean everything. So to come out with a $700 system that doesn't warrant the price in any way, the best way that they warrant the price is because the PlayStation 5 Pro has 2 terabytes of storage. You can buy your own fucking storage You know what I'm saying? Is it convenient to have it right there? Of course it is. But you're doing it essentially just to charge more for a price when the graphics don't correlate. Is it better than the original PS5? Yeah, it definitely is. It's not worth all that. Not at all. Especially when you see the bit rates of Wukong, for example, compared to Steam on high-end computers, high-end PCs. It doesn't translate. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. Yeah, I feel you, Mooney. I love PlayStation 2. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what the fuck. Who I don't know who's playing Xbox. I'm not knocking y'all. How are y'all living? You know what I'm saying? I can't remember the last time I heard anything about Xbox. You know what I mean? So that's just something to think about. Anyway, um, so let me get back to my mother. My mother she was the epitome of her secondary three energy born on the 12th. She was a motor mouth. She always had something good to say. She could sing her ass off. She was somewhere between Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey. She sang in the choir as much and as often as she possibly could, but she was highly bronchial. And Detroit has always been a place that whatever the season is, it goes through at times 10. So those winters, they were never really very friendly to my mother. That eventually caught up with her. Um, she had a way of knowing. She was a five life path, like her mother, my grandmother. She did everything from the heart space. She lived through me in a lot of ways because my mother was born in 1946. She was the epitome of a boomer, very old school, very respectable. Whatever my grandfather or my grandmother said was law. She did not speak back. She did not go against. She did not dispute. You know what I mean? Um, I was born different. You know what I'm saying? I was severely born different. Um, my grandmother and I had a very interesting relationship from the time I was born, so I was told. Um, I didn't let anyone speak ill or negative about my mother, including my grandmother. Now, my grandfather was the shit. My grandfather um, would listen to my grandmother go off, not seriously, you know what I'm saying? She would go off about this, go off about that. And then it would eventually turn into what he did do or what he didn't do. For years, I never, ever, ever saw him or heard him say a single word back. If anything, he would laugh, right? And I used to watch him and listen to these conversations, these one-sided conversations in amazement. My mother she couldn't hang around it. She'd go somewhere else. Um, but when that same conversation or that same vial would come from my grandmother towards my mother, she had to deal with me. And that didn't last too long because I got a mouth on me, especially if you're fucking with somebody um, I love, right? I love no one more than my mother. So my grandmother used to get it, but she would get it in a way where, I mean, I was a child, so I could only say but so much. You shoot, depending on who you talking to, you can't say shit. You open your mouth, you're getting slapped. But because I wasn't coming from a place of disrespect, I would reflect some of my grandmother's own behavior. Um, and it would tend to be very hypocritical. But essentially, she didn't have anyone else to talk to. I would find this out and learn a little bit more the ins and outs of this after my mother made the transition. Um, when my mother transitioned October 30th, 2000, it was just my grandmother and myself left in the immediate circle of the family. Um, that forced us to not just get along, but kind of just appreciate each other in a way that we hadn't really been we hadn't really given each other the space or the opportunity to do that. Um, I'm saying this part of the story, or I'm sharing this rather, because there's good in everything. As painful as loss and death can be, and as much as in the moment, because Lord have mercy, everybody's lost somebody. In the moment of that loss, I don't give a fuck what you talking about, what Jesus talking about, what his mama talking. I don't want to hear it. No, nobody wants to hear it. You know what I'm saying? You can the nicest, sweetest, truest words. People need time. You know what I'm saying? So you have to remember that. And you can't tell somebody how to grieve either. How long or how hard or how soft or I ain't seen you cry yet, motherfucker. It ain't up to you. Right? Don't do that to people. But understand that even if you can't see it in the moment, eventually you will come to learn that even death can be not just a good thing, but a very good and needed thing. Some of us can't find ways to forgive or to come back together or to allow space for until people make their exit. And then you see that, oh shit, they was really the glue behind this, or they was really the fuel for this. This just ain't never gonna be the same. But see, they left you in that place. In much the same way, a child will never lose his mother without another one ready to kind of take that position. You got to be open to receive that position. In the same way, you got to allow them that space to kind of step into that hurt. You can't heal otherwise. It's been 24 years. Does it get easier? Yeah, a little bit. It gets harder too. I don't really care. I promise you, I really don't. But if my mama was to see how many people I got on my Facebook, she'd lose her mind. You know what I'm saying? You know, I wouldn't care. No, it don't mean anything other than that for me. You know what I'm saying? Some people maybe that means a lot. I wouldn't give a fuck if it was 5 of y'all. You know what I'm saying? I'm still gonna say what I got to say. So understand the power of perspective. Understand the space of enjoying what we have while we have it, and the people that want to be around us, that choose to be around us, that choose to be related and allow us to come through them. You see this energy driving a lot of people crazy. It's a lot of crazy crime. A lot of us may act like we don't see it. You know, we might try to scroll real fast past that story and click off that channel or do whatever we do, act like it ain't whatever. I don't know. But that's not going anywhere. Your reaction to it is the only thing that matters. The space you give it, how you choose to see it, because it's going to get very interesting for the rest of this election year. Mark my words. Mark my words and keep safe. That's about the best way I can put it. Other than that, if we don't have any questions, man, I wanted to just rant. I wanted to talk some good energy and some good words to my mom, who I miss terribly. I had some wonderful peach cobbler today. Still don't come close. Still don't come close. Love, peace, and power, Mama Joyce. Glad you could join us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you. Kiss all the babies for me. Tell my brother I said, hit me up with his hard head. Love your people, man. Love them while you got them. Love them while they're here. Love them while you can. And that's it. I ain't got nothing else for y'all tonight, man. I will be back at some point this weekend. I have been working on a lot of projects. I got some very good interviews coming up. But I've been writing some books. I don't know when some of these things are going to be done because the information, the funny thing about writing is the more you concentrate on it, even when you don't, it turns into a magnet. So I started out writing one book and then it turned into another. And then I wrote a book when I was in the hospital. 3 years ago. That anniversary is actually coming up next week also. That'll be another story you're going to want to come back for. Claude, have mercy. I wrote a book about that experience, about dying 6 times, about being in the hospital, about becoming a transhuman, you know what I'm saying, having a Tony Stark heart-powered pump, everything that entails. And then it turned into something else, but you can't always see what's coming for you. I've been very thankful. Shout out to Jessica. Shout out to FFS Credit. My God, absolute miracle worker. If you have any questions or any credit needs, especially in terms of small business, you can find her on my link tree. You can also see her pinned to the top of my page on my Facebook. All love in the world to Jessica and her family. It's a lot of things that need to be done, and this is the season to do them. So I invite you all to stay moving, get moving, keep moving, man. We got too much to do out here and nobody to do it for us. And I don't think any of us are really going to trust anybody to do it, especially when we can do it ourselves. So, with that said, I want to say happy birthday, Doris Elaine Barnett. I love you with every fiber of my being. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. So I learned something. Please forgive me. This just came back. I didn't have this in my notes. My mother wanted to name me Shaquisha. Right? I mentioned earlier about her. She did not have a rebellious spirit. She wished she did, but she lived vicariously through me and my rebellion. My father named me, and she always loved my name. But she was, had I been a girl, she would have named me Shaquisha. She always hated how plain her name sounded, Doris Elaine. Elaine, Elaine. So I went to sleep a couple nights ago and I was thinking about my mom, I was thinking about my grandparents. I went to sleep with the intention of just trying to find out anything, just trying to bring back anything I didn't already know. And my grandfather was born in 1919, Union City, Tennessee. Earlier that year in Elaine, Arkansas, there was a massacre. You can look that up. And my grandfather's father made it out of that massacre barely. He told my grandfather that story. And when my grandmother became pregnant with my mother, she already had the name Doris, but she wanted my grandfather to give the middle name. My mom loved her middle name. She didn't like her first name. She told me that story. I must have been 3. But you know how you have those memories where you can remember something from almost before you can remember it? I don't know if that makes sense. But that's what I got. And I looked it up yesterday and I was amazed how much information there actually was. What they do with Tulsa that happened in 1921, it's almost like what they do with Africa. They try to keep people focused on Africa, as the origin of man. So you don't look at the rest of the world and see that amazing history. It's the same thing. Be open to your own spirit. Stay open to information that can come from any and every avenue. I cannot stress that enough. Because if you think you ain't going to get nothing out of this, that, and the third, I guarantee you won't. And you ain't supposed to. At least not yet. But only your perspective can change that. Love, peace, and power, y'all. I greatly appreciate you for joining me. And I hope you have a magnificent evening. Put on some Frankie Beverly and go watch some of James Earl Jones. Love, peace, and power.